I will announce once I hit the go live button on LinkedIn. And there it is. Happy Thursday once again. Uh, Another episode of Let's Build Some Audiences in HubSpot with Mr. Oaks. How you doing, man?
I am doing well. How are you?
I am fantastic. Trying to do my best to get used to saying Happy Thursday 4 times in a day, like it's the first time you're seeing this. But that's I think one of the challenges related to building audience is knowing that your outreach and communication is only hitting a sliver. So you
Yes,
got to get used to always, saying the right message at the right time for the right people. So
that is
happy
true.
to
You
be
could
here
also think
again.
of it as every time you say it, your Thursday gets a little happier. So, the more you
Indeed,
say it, the better your day.
indeed. That's what happens when you show up with the same intention, bringing the same value. You see that incremental value being built, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about that today. All the series is all about trying to build on everything you know, everything you learn, all the interactions you have with your customers, so that you can show up 1% better every day. So what are we talking about today?
Today, we are going to talk about, let me pull up my diagram. Today, we're going to talk about the first, I don't like the term personalized, but first tailored message that you actually send to your prospects. Uh, as a speedy recap here, in your sales and marketing activities and organizations, as a customer progresses through them, if you're doing both activities right, you should be increasing not just the information you have about your customers, which is not what's depicted here. As soon as they convert, you get first name, last name, email, maybe company, etc. But what you want to be doing is building an engine that helps you understand your customers better as you interact with them, and then using that to serve them better. And we've talked about a number of these specific elements, and we will keep talking about them. Today, we're going to talk about, I posted this on LinkedIn earlier this week, um, that uh, most companies, most organizations, whether they're for profit or not, have a lot of touch points with customers or prospects before they actually end up converting. But a lot of organizations getting a campaign out the door, getting your whether it's your first or your 50th like campaign landing page form or other touch point, the same tactic can be applied in like PLG motions, not just like lead gen or high touch sales. Um, but we get ads, we get our URLs tagged, we get vendors involved. We finally get a CTA written, the form placed on the landing page. We get an auto response email, and then we're like, okay, our we're handing it off, and the rest of our sales motion or our nurturing or whatever is off to the races. Whew. And you had somebody stick their head into the process and line item a bunch of stuff at the last minute, and your budget got cut and then increased, and then your goals got moved up, and it's like it's a bloodbath getting these things out there. And one of the first touch points here that loses focus is one of the most important, and it's what happens for customers immediately after they submit that form. And again, we're talking about high friction, kind of more high touch sales motions in this example specifically, but these tactics are relevant. It can be applied to a lot of different areas, right? So
Yeah.
the form thank you experience and the first email that they get that acknowledges like, okay, we have your information, and because you got this email, although maybe it went into your other tab in Gmail or something, um, that we had an interaction and something is going to happen but we often don't want to promise what, because who knows how quickly sales will follow up or whatever. Or maybe we sent them, they requested a downloadable or something. We're like, okay, whew, here's your downloadable, and now our workflow or our sequence is going to fire trying to get us schedule a demo or set up a meeting or whatever. But
And we get here, like, and I love this sentence. Someone will be in touch soon. Uh, because this is what happens when there's so much focus on the conversion. It's like,
yes,
yeah, they filled out the form. We don't care what happens next. We'll take care of it. They're ours.
right,
They're in our funnel,
right,
right? Instead of, and we can't say anything besides we'll be in touch soon because we are not committed to any kind of experience. We're just like, they're in the door, great. And the other example I like to talk about in this case, like how many, like, you talk about, since you're focused on conversion, it's like, okay, what is the pay? It's all like one way engagement up to that
yes,
point. And like, okay, what do we put on the button so that they click it? And it's like, how many buy nows have you
right,
clicked on where it's like, oh, I can't actually buy now,
right,
right?
right. Yeah, with the a major disconnect between I mean, like we just talked about, each person, not there's nobody besides you who has heard every one of your happy Thursdays today. But a lot of people will hear one of them, and that their individual experience, they saw a specifically crafted CTA and a specifically crafted button. And this often falls to like the growth or marketing organization, and they are like just getting that ball over the line in the end zone. They're like, oh, thank God, like we got the conversion, um, and then handing off. But even ignoring like that, if we did the CTA right, and it's not just buy now exclamation point start today, Google, the Google ads best practices CTAs, if it is actually like a value oriented CTA and the form makes a promise there, we don't carry it over and say, like, look, we know that you came here with this need, this pain point. Here's your bigger problem, and here's what we think you understand about the solution, and here's where we fit. We leave that like maybe sales can like get their objections and they'll deal with that later. Um, you know, we don't care, and that's what we can solve. It's not that hard. Takes, this is one of those, I like to say, 30 minutes of planning can save you 3 months of headache and heartache. Where if you just think a little harder about who your audience is and this interaction, you can do a lot better, serve your customers better, show them that you understand them, and that pays massive dividends in a
Yeah,
in a physical retail parallel, right? Like you wouldn't no store that you walk into, do you walk into the shipping and receiving department, except for maybe like IKEA, you have to walk through it right on your way in. But any other store that you walk into, they have done a lot of investment in trying to figure out what people want to see that provides a great experience, right, when they walk in. And for some reason, we think the immediate availability of a conversion and the data and to be able to track it and back to spend and campaigns obviates us from having to think about, like, okay, once they're in the door, what's the first thing they should get? Oh, just throw together a thank you page and like an email, and we'll worry about the nurture sequence and the handoff to the reps or whatever later.
right.
um,
Well,
the first
sometimes,
touch point should be inspiring and helpful for your customers.
right. And that's where, like, when you start to connect conversion rates to lead gen, and these are the focused outcomes. Like sometimes, and that's so often what people have invested in HubSpot for, are those two
Right,
things. And you have this new marketing person, right? No matter how great that experience is, sometimes like sales is the one that says, no, I don't want anything happening in this email because now we're going to get on the call. And that's when the real process
right,
starts, right?
right. And I think some of that, like that I'm going to use the word fault. The fault there often lies with marketing because
Mhm.
we have disconnected from sales's understanding of their customers' needs. And we have done a bad job by just fire hosing people with downloadables. It's like, oh, you converted. Here's some PDFs, like t-shirt cannon PDFs at people, and without any respect to like where they're coming from, what their needs are, right? So we're
And it's like,
sending,
wow, 10,
yeah,
10. This guy got 10 t-shirt sales. He's
yeah,
hot. He's ready to
right,
go.
yeah, yeah, and it's like we're sending, we're treating, for example, VP level or executives who we actually manage to convert the same as we would treat like an individual contributor who's like just trying to download a free template, and we're not thinking through those things. And when somebody like that gets into sales, they're probably not going to be able to get them on the phone, right? Because we haven't recognized their different needs, right? And
Or when you do,
good,
and it's like, man, it it's such a red flag, and sometimes it's just for you in the because we're in the space, but it's a different kind of red flag for those who aren't. It's like when you get the call and you decide to answer it, like lucky for that SDR that you even did that.
right,
And then they're like, "Why are you calling me?" It's like, "Oh, you downloaded something." It's like,
right,
"Oh, okay. Like I know where
right.
this is going, and I
Yes,
don't want to
yeah,
go
for
there right
sure.
now. So later."
Yep. And that's that, like, their stage, in marketing language, we would call it, what stage of the journey are they on? That's something that we can layer and use this same technique for. What we're going to drill down here is what we can do to make this email more relevant so that we are aligned with the person getting the email is getting something that is more relevant, that is actually like investing value in the relationship from our side, right? Like, if we're doing this right, we've made a promise that there's something that we can do for them, and we want to just fire hose not downloadables but value into that relationship, right? And if we have aligned it all the way through sales, then we aren't overstepping those bounds, right? Or assumptions. um, So it's actually like also not, this is like I say, 30 minutes can save you 3 months of heartache. It's not that hard. The tools aren't hard to use. The thinking isn't hard. You just need a little bit of that customer understanding. So I'm going to jump over and show. I'm showing uh, sandbox data, so we don't expose any um, customer data here. But so here's an email auto response that is set up uh, in this environment to be, the first email, automated email that goes out after a prospect submits. In this case, I'm just going to call it an inquiry form, right? Some website touch point that is that is contextualized as a we're trading a little bit of information with one another. Different sales processes that can mean different things. A like product led, for example, you would have a sign up, right? And not strictly speaking inquiry form. So you would do this a little bit differently. But like I said, the tactics are going to apply everywhere.
Yeah, so it's the first moment that I like to explain. It's like the first moment something there is direct expectation
Right.
that they are receiving some kind of value, whether it's information or outreach. And without tools like HubSpot, this is usually a manual, callback or something like that.
Right.
But now we can bridge the gap just for when we know response time is so important. Uh, just sets up continuity in a
Right.
way that has like that 30 minutes of planning saves 3 months of heartache. The same thing in the sales process, where if you do that first 30 minutes of interaction really, really well, you've probably saved 3 months
Yeah.
of close time, right?
Yep. Yep. And it's the this parallel is also another illustration is kind of less relevant, I think, because of the predominance of e-commerce, of the app window into e-commerce. But if you rewind a couple of years and you placed an Amazon order and you didn't get a confirmation email within 6 seconds, you would think, did my order go through? Right. And particularly in B2B, for some reason, we're okay with like, you know, the response email will come in like next 10 minutes or it'll get assigned to a rep or whatever. Right. And that's not a great experience.
I hope I get it. Like,
Right.
I hope I don't have to ask, because
Right.
oftentimes I do have to ask, like, did
Yeah,
it go
for
through?
sure.
Right?
Yep. And that if you're lucky, they don't think about you again. Oftentimes, the bad taste makes leaves some bitterness. Um, so, what uh, to illustrate that, what we've got here is a simple email derived straight from one of the HubSpot, default templates, their welcome email template, and I've taken it and added some personalization, first name, the signed by the um, owner of the contact record, um, and which is a little ambitious, but that's
Well, I think that's where
we'll go
it's
with
like,
it.
it's the hard part to
Yeah,
get the teams to, and leadership and sales specifically, like, to understand, like, we because it's very easy to say, like, buyers don't want to talk to you until they're 80% of the way through the journey, and that's why we need HubSpot. And but when we say it like that, it's very hard not to feel like you're trying to replace me as a
right.
salesperson. But in reality, like, the buyer could be moving through that 80%, and you don't have to be there when they're at 40%, but we're making you visible at that point with things like this,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And it's a push and pull between like, I mean, I've never talked to an organization where the sales team didn't say, look, just give me leads that are hot and ready to buy. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, if we could do that, we'd all be billionaires, right? But you don't want people who are early stage, but the data tells us that a lot of decision making is happening way earlier in somebody's purchase journey, right? Like
Yeah,
those are forces pulling against one another, right? And so like
right.
that's an example of something that's like, if we can deliver consistency and deliver it early like that, we can build the brand not only of the company but of the first person that they're going to talk to.
Yeah, because like, hot and ready to buy means like trust and convenience. And like, we want them hot and ready to buy from you, like the
Right.
sales guy, because you're the first one and you're going to help them buy. And we can build a lot of that trust. Like, and it's, of course, they're just inherently used to being the person to deliver that information. So
Right.
if we can't show that this is what we're doing with this, and now they actually are hot and ready to buy because they trust the organization, they trust you already, and you're just there to help them click like in
Right.
the right spots.
And as we saw in the playbook episode that we did, we can deliver that understanding to you on a platter when you get on the calls. Um, so
And that's where, like,
go ahead.
the alignment and strategy is so important,
Right.
because we often do a lot of that work. But when you're the sales guy and you don't trust that, and or you try to over deliver the value that they've already gotten,
Right.
that actually like creates inconsistent like experiences for the customer, and we actually can
Yeah.
lose trust in those moments.
Right. Right. Yeah. If the customer is already like self-qualified for a particular product or seen, done a self-assessment and then you don't know. And so you try to push like, well, to go do our self-assessment. And they're like, can't you tell that I've already done that? And then we have an answer.
Yep.
So the first touch point, like what we've got here is like, I said here, like it's often a bloody gauntlet to get to this point and you're just going to cobble something together. You should always take your best shot at a general auto response email to an inquiry or a downloadable request or whatever this touch point is. You should definitely have one that is relevant to the conversion experience and is applicable if you don't know anything about who the customer is, what they want, um, or anything else, right? But that should be about 20%, in my opinion, 20% of the amount of effort that you invest in this first email. So you can see in here, this is a smart module, and we've said, uh, you know, if it's an inquiry, maybe we have an assessment, like a fit assessment that's like, hey, we're not the right solution for everybody. We want to make sure you're successful. Take this assessment, right? So we've linked it out. We've got our resources linked and a push for a meeting or a demo request, right? And we would be able to track and react to clicks on these links, etc. This is all, right down the middle of the plate, auto response email. This should be the lowest common denominator, like worst case scenario for companies. So I'm going to show the smart module here, and this is HubSpot nitty gritty. But what a smart module is lets you take a piece of content and then based on parameters, change it for the person that is seeing the content. So I've set this up with smart lists that use some rules to corral people. This one is a friction factor. The first rule says if we know that one of the um, experiences that they are having in making the purchase decision is that they are concerned about how much effort it is to get from purchase to value, the post purchase handoff, where we often fail customers. We want to send them a tailored version of this email. And the other one is that we want to, difficulty with diagnosis is one of the personas or audience profiles, ICPs, that we're targeting. And that is somebody who has tried to solve this problem several times, probably been burned, and isn't sure what the actual underlying cause of their symptoms are. And they need um, and so they're a little bit skeptical and they need a little bit more evidence that this solution actually is going to solve their problem because a lot of people have promised that before, right? And these are just lists based on parameters from forms, which we'll look at in a minute. Um, and those two parameters create two different additional experiences, right? This default is if they're not on those lists, they get our best shot at like, look, we don't know what they need, but we've tried these things out and they seem to work. But the on your mark person who has indicated to us that they um, are concerned, like I said, uh, that the migration of the solution or deployment or just straight rollout takes a long time, right? And they're like, this, we have an immediate need. This is going to take whatever 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 24 months to get to a solution. Um, we just create a version for those people that puts our best thoughts in front of them about what they need in this value exchange, right? So we can say just simple language changes, we're committed to your whole journey. We don't stop when you sign the deal. So we have some case studies and social proof, right? And these can be general, or we could even base these on their job title if we have it, industry, et cetera. But we just link out to some stories from people in roles that have implemented their solution so that they can start like a self-guided research process. We can surface the specific resources that we have created for marketing and sales enablement that point to that challenge. How do I get started? Well, we've got migration plan templates that are presentations that explain how to do it. And then we've got baseline plans that you can either use as is or copy and put it into your project management system that step you through. Here are the major phases. Here are the major activities. Here is what discovery looks like. Here are the stakeholders who should be involved. If you have an abstract solution that takes a long time to implement, one of your challenges in order to cement the value that you provide in the minds and hearts of your prospects is show them what it takes to get there, right? And why would you invest in these tools and then let them sit in the resources area and then maybe 6 months later when they actually schedule a time, provide it? when you can take a big swing and just say, like, look, this demonstrates our expertise. We know what it's going to take for you to get value. And if you do this and your competitors don't, you look like the experts and they look like consultant chumps that want to just like sell you on a high ticket thing and then maybe later upsell you on professional services that are going to cost a fortune, right?
Yeah,
Um,
and this is a challenge, right? Like we know that in a lot of spaces the competitors aren't doing it, which means usually the customers are settling and they're not necessarily asking directly for experiences like this. So
right.
it's constantly like, hey,
Yeah, they
you
have
just take
no frame of reference. Like they don't
right.
they
But at the
they
same
ask
time,
on their sales calls like, what does that process look like, right? And typically, that we have an answer, we have a script for that. But we don't have is, oh man, we have a massive. I'll give it to you right now. You can look at it. I've got a massive toolkit that will help you,
yeah,
create your plan.
yeah. And at the same time, like we know that in their personal life, Netflix is like giving them personalized experiences, Amazon, like all these
Yeah,
things. So even though they're not directly expecting it of you, they're indirectly expect because you are compared to those experiences,
right.
whether it's a fair comparison or not,
Well, I mean,
right?
in some ways it isn't, right? But in some ways, I mean, these tools, now these are the collection of tools I'm here showing here are Pro Plus, but for sales, for HubSpot plans. But this isn't rocket science, right? Like,
Right.
you can do this, right? It's
Yeah.
not challenging.
And the best place to get to this point is talk to the sales team, understand what kind of emails they are answering questions like this every day, right? They even the best ones are usually creating resources like in the moment all the time to
Yeah,
share, right? And they're personalizing it every time. We can take a lot of that and just create resources from that. And I also say, like, again, when we started from a place of leads and conversions, and and it's like, all right, we got HubSpot. Now we hear nurturing is a good idea.
right.
So we're going to do that by jumping into workflows and sending them 7 emails over 7 weeks that are just like, are you ready to
Hey, have
buy?
you? Yeah,
Are
have
you
you
ready to
clicked yet?
buy?
Have you clicked yet? Have you clicked yet?
Yeah.
Is what they are. Yeah.
So this is nurturing. This is
Yes.
like, and if we just step back from technology, we think about the word nurturing, it is
Right.
not asking you to buy over and over and
Yeah.
over, right?
Yeah.
That's a sales campaign, maybe, but this is like, nurturing. This is what that is. We're bringing people along on the journey.
Yeah, and the language that I like to use is serving your customers, right? Like if you don't really care about your customers, then sure, don't do this, right? But
Yeah, and
if
that's where
your
like
customers being successful is part of your success, then the question is like, well, what do they need, right? Let's figure out how we can serve them.
right, and that's where like as long as you're using phrases like lead nurturing, like they are not a human being going through a buying process until some internal mechanism that you've decided
Right,
turns them into a human that might buy from you. And of course, any lead nurturing things that you do aren't actually serving,
right.
anybody at that point.
Yep, yep. Um, so let's look at one more email example, and I'll show simple approaches on the forms, and then we'll be done. The so our other the other angle we're using to tailor, right? As we said, if we know that this audience belongs to our difficulty with diagnosis, which again is a prospect who has indicated to us something like, you know, we have a X problem and I've tried 3 vendors and hired and fired, 2 teams and we're still having a problem, whatever. I mean, don't take that project on if somebody's having that problem because they probably have something a problem you can't solve. But
There's other
uh,
problems.
yeah,
Yes.
but if it's like, look, we know we have a conversion problem. We know we have a tension problem. When we've tried this, we've read every blog post and we followed every influencer on LinkedIn and we've done all these things and all of the platitudes and all the best practices and whatever they haven't helped. Like, Can you help us with this thing? Um, and in that scenario, right, like what we want to hit is like, look, your pain point is something we can solve, but that doesn't mean we solve it for everybody. So we want to highlight, we have a self-assessment that tries to get at like what could be the potential diagnoses for your symptom, right? For the KPI that you can't move or the project that you can't unblock, with a little bit of, there's some Mad Lib style fill in the blank. We've helped hundreds of companies solve your pain point in their problem space. Here's our in-depth assessment. And for somebody, for example, this is an understanding your customer. If you know that that's a common profile among your customers, they have been sold to how many times? Dozens, probably. People who say like, "Oh yeah, that KPI, like we totally moved that. I'll send you the proposal when I get back to my desk." Right? Um, that kind of person wants some reassurances, right? Like they need somebody to say, not, "Oh yeah, we'll do it. Just sign." They need somebody to say, yeah, let's before we get started, let's take a look, right? And slow down. That alone establishes like authority and expertise, um, because they know you're not just promising and that you've actually thought about it and you've put these tools together. And
Yes,
so we
good
also want to
friction.
share, yeah, like here's our video, like when we are the solution to this kind of problem or not, right? Like maybe they don't want to take the assessment. They're afraid they'll just keep sending them more emails if they do. But put a put a video in your resources site or whatever, in your YouTube channel that talks about that distinction, when our solution is right for you and when it's not. And make it more in depth than just like, well, if you don't want to save money, then we're not the right. Um, and for somebody who is wants to solve this problem, but is skeptical of the promises, right? And the panaceas, give them that right up front, right? And this is all based on you knowing that these are common challenges that your prospects get, which you've done through research and customer listening and intel from the sales team and sales calls, et cetera. And
Yeah.
that's it, right? Like we
These
haven't offered anything. Like if we go back to the our default, we have we're offering basically the same kind of interactions, like same kind of self-guided next steps that we are in the default, but we've used what we know about our customers to deliver them this first touch, walk in the door experience that says, we know what you're looking for. Come over here. Tell us if you need anything else. Right.
yeah,
I'm going to
I
jump
just
over to forms in the but it sounded like you wanted to add something.
yeah, it's just where my mind goes, like as you flip through these examples, like the less we know, um generally, like especially if our website and like our how we show up online will generally relate to some expectations that the user has, right? And if we don't give them opportunities to tell us who they are, they they're less likely to expect, such a personalized experience, right? Um, and so that's where it's like, if it's the first time ever to our site and they've never interacted with us, like this is still a fantastic experience because we're giving them choose your own adventure. We've responded like in a timely way. And now all of this relates to each step they take in the journey. They tell us who they are. Where I'm curious, and maybe this will be a good conversation after inbound some point. Like I think about the de-anonymization of web visitors that is starting to happen, and how how people will definitely try to create personalized experiences before the customer tells us who they are specifically. And I expect to be hearing some of that at inbound next week as we talk about data enrichment and AI and all this stuff. But we'll leave that for another time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say in passing as we go in here that this kind of understanding that we're talking about, that we have identified people who are concerned about migration adoption, what happens after the purchase, because they know it's going to be hard and long. And it's like, I'm going to sign a whatever, I'm going to sign a big contract for me, like I might be signing a $250,000 software contract, and that's small to the company selling it, but it's big to the person making the purchase decision. And they feel like, look, I'm going to front $250,000, and then we're going to start seeing value in 6 to 9 months. There's no, you can't de-anonymize that, right? That is something that you have to set up touch points that bring the customer to you with that level of understanding.
Yeah.
One of those is conversion forms. So let's look at two similar approaches. One is what I call a coded ask. So this is just a straight, simple inquiry form that um, asks, one additional question. What are you struggling with? And this would, of course, happen. This form would be on the site somewhere on a landing page, in a resource area or whatever. Um, and what we've done is taken the profiles that we have done our research and figured out who these folks are. Like this one, for example, diagnosis is that one that we just talked about in the context of the email. I've tried to fix this and haven't been successful, right? In customer language. And, we've talked before about my first rodeo, like we're not sure how to get started. We're not asking them, what profile do you belong to? We're asking them a question that is positioned to help uh, them navigate, help us help them navigate their way through this experience in customer language that is differentiated across our profiles, right? This isn't like pain points, because those are not always differentiated across our profiles. This isn't job title. This isn't company size. This is describe your problem. And a lot of people will, a common pushback is like, oh, we heard that um, fewer fields is better, and people don't want to answer questions like that, et cetera. And those things are all true, but nobody has one field forms, right? And
Well,
uh,
when we do, it's like I do not expect a sales call after filling out one field, right?
right,
I think that's where it's like it in theory, this is in a place where again, if we've created the expectation that we're going to be responsive to them after they fill out this form, yeah, we want to ask one question like, why the hell are you filling out this form? Uh, because if we don't, uh, we're going to get a lot more bad fit, leads. We're
right,
going to respond to a lot more people that we don't know what the hell, why we're responding, right? This whole like, oh, most of those leads that would have chosen not to fill out the form because we asked this question, we don't want those leads anyways,
right, right.
right?
And we don't have to require the form. There's a scale, right? We don't have to
Yeah.
require it, so people can just skip it. That's fine. That's why we still make a good depersonalized, if you will, version of that response email. um, the people who at the other end of the spectrum, the people who do answer it, get a better experience, and we can at least score them a little bit better, and we have more to go on, right? Somebody who isn't going to answer, that's fine, right? We will actually, our process should be that we are trying again later, maybe asking different ways, but we should definitely be trying to collect some of that information, at least by the time they get into the sales funnel, right? So
Yeah.
we can do progressive form fields if you really want. We can do it in different touch points, so that a form that, like, if you're doing like a self-assessment form, it's like a, hey, take, answer these questions and we'll tell you whether you're a good fit for us or not. um, Ask in a context like that. And that so that the conversion experience is a fair value exchange, right? um, if it's just like, if your
Yeah.
exit intent form asks this, uh, you're probably not going to get a high response rate on this property. But if you are again, offering exchange of value,
Yeah.
you are more likely to, right? And if you collect it, great.
Right. And this
Um,
is where like the difference we think about 80/20 rules and like quality versus quantity. Like whenever there's lead goals and conversion goals, you like there's 20%, or let's say even 1 out of 10 might be willing to tell you their life story because the pain is so great and they're going to
right,
be that hot, ready to buy lead, but you don't give them the opportunity to do that. So they don't, you treat them like everybody else and you lose the
right,
opportunity.
right. So that's one way. This is a similar approach, but this is, we talked about friction factors, which is different than profiles, right? These are the profile is who they are, what they're going to accomplish. The friction factor is like what's slowing you down on your decision making, and you can just present it, this way. This is a great judo, and the language matters a lot. How you present it matters a lot, but um, what this is not asking is like list all of your sales objections, because that's clear. If it's like, if you put like price, blah, blah, everybody checks price and it's never price. But, um, if you put this on a touch point where, again, fair exchange of value, and you just like upfront ask, like, hey, you tell us, like, why do you think we won't work for you? And and it's not, you can do it in a non-combative, or like they feel like they're giving up a card,
And it's
right?
not banned.
Right. Yes, it's not banned, and it's not, it's pretty transparent when it's like, you know, tell us these things so that we can come back with a crowbar against all of the
Right.
things that
How
you're gonna.
important are you really as an individual? Like you
Right.
like
Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
have
exactly.
like
Right.
what's your budget?
Yeah.
Like do you
Yeah.
have a
Like,
need?
yeah, this doesn't say, are you decision maker, champion,
Yeah.
um, but if you can say like, look, checkbox, like I'm worried about migrating, right? Like even a purchase like HubSpot, or even there's a lot of purchases happening in business now, like even Canva, right? Somebody is using Canva, right? And it's like, well, our marketing team is using Canva, and but we have all of these licenses to these other solutions, but we can't get them to use our main system. It's like, look, this should be an easy buying decision, but like I'm worried about migrating our assets. I'm worried about migrating our project data, our customer data. I'm worried about whatever, retraining our team. Um, if you collect that information, that's how we deliver the on your mark, right? Like, what does it take to get successful? Here's our migration plan, right? You listen to these touch points, or this intel that you get further down the sales process, and then come back around and say, like, if we can pin these tags on records that come into our CRM, we can do such a better job serving them from the first email to the handoff to sales, if we're doing it right, into onboarding, right? Like, somebody that says migrating is one of their biggest concerns, and then they download the migration plan, and then hopefully sales is like, oh, you downloaded that migration plan, did you fill it out, you want to look at it? Or like when we do a demo call, you want me to have a sales engineer on there to like review the migration plan you've got filled out, right? You're there with a catcher's mitt, just saying like, we we get from front to back what your concerns are, and we are experts, and we are here to address those things and help you be successful, right? That's it. um, so it's really simple, right? All we did in this case, we can add a property to our forms. If you want to get fancy, you can do things like um, uh, build lists in HubSpot of the resources or the pages that people look at either before or after they convert, even, right? Like somebody who, if you cordon off your content effectively, you can look at surface contacts who have spent a lot of time on the migration planning resources, or on pages about, or have, they visited and 5 people from their company have visited your diagnostic assessment tool, and now they are finally converting, right? Um, that tells you that tells you that they where some of their concerns are. Don't go overboard on that. People, every company, every sales team, and marketing team love to say like, "Can I get a list of all the people who have viewed our blog or have viewed our pricing page?" Uh, and it's like that's
No.
not as useful as you think. But if you can, because the answer is most of them, not the blog. Um, but if you can, um, if that content is oriented around needs and intents, then you can connect it, right? You can, and same thing, get that form data collection around needs and intents, and then react to that as people go through the process. And again, 30 minutes of planning, have your just add to your project plan that you're going to create the tailored version of the email. Make sure that you've got some at least rudimentary, or be happy to help you to work, get better understanding of who your customers are and get that in so that you can pin those tags on people as they move through and serve them more effectively from front to back.
Yeah, no, this is beautiful. And like what comes to mind, like just this, the progression of this, the reason it's, you look at it as like building blocks is, this ongoing conversation between buyers and sellers. Um, it's always challenging, right? You're trying to build trust on both sides. And when you
Mm-hmm.
have, like, when I'm the buyer and I've given you information and then you read it back to me, sometimes just that like
Yes.
helps power, like, okay, because I've always gotten, it's this interesting human behavior dynamic where there is value in having somebody restate, the problem, because it's a different day, a different time. But when you do it in a way that looks like you have no idea what has happened up to
Yes.
now, right? There's very little value. And they might tell you a very different way because now they're annoyed with the question. They just want to move forward, right? So all of this really helps the team align with the customer. And that's, at the end of the day, for me, that's the beauty of HubSpot, is you create this journey that can be
Yeah.
completely mirrored internally and externally. And when you have that, of course, close rates are going to get better, customer experience is going to get better, and uh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited,
And
man.
you should be more effective at attracting better fit customers, and then they should be a bigger pie of your revenue graph, right? Like,
Right. And
you
this
can
is
never
scale.
eliminate poor fit customers, but if your, again, front to back process is like tuned not for just like, you know, lowest common denominator, um, then uh, your close rates could stay the same, and and you would just attract more better fit customers. They'd be a bigger slice of your revenue, and you would probably have higher revenue. Most good fit customers, most businesses that can land good fit customers have an expansion strategy, right?
Yeah.
Um,
This
and
is where
so,
the
like,
the scale, the
yeah,
scale comes from marketing. And when you start from a place of how do we grow and scale, and we just got to hire more salespeople, like you never get to this point. Like, yes, you'll get more revenue, but the costs
if you're
are always
lucky,
going to
yeah.
match like the revenue, if not outpace it, right?
Yeah, sales, marketing, and sales pipelines are not simple systems. They're not like a bathtub where if you plug the drain and turn on the faucet, they fill up. They're complex systems. And so the least effective thing to do is increase your marketing budget and hire more salespeople, because your broken system, the places where you have bottlenecks, are typically not, you know, how many salespeople there are and what your budget is, right? Increase the number one thing that you guarantee, if you, by increasing your marketing budget and hiring more salespeople, is that you'll spend more money, right? But it
Yeah.
does not follow that you will grow.
Right. More money does not always equal more revenue. Uh, Thanks so much, man. I love where this is headed. I feel like just there's like a course to be created off of this. You got some really great examples. I think it flows really well, and I look forward to continuing with you. You'll
Yep.
be back in a couple weeks.
Yep.
I'm sure
We'll
we'll
be
have
back
some.
after inbound, but I will not be at inbound.
Yeah.
Not
Um,
this year.
I'll definitely. I'm sure I'll be talking about how what we've learned at inbound and all the cool things that have been delivered will help make this process even better. But even there,
Yeah.
if we have not built the strategy to even do this in the first place, it doesn't matter what happens at inbound.
Yeah.
Like HubSpot cannot do this for
Yep.
us.
If you
And
don't have the fundamentals right, more powerful, complex tools does not solve it.
yeah. So as you guys think about your nurturing programs or like how to get better, maybe your conversion rates are high, but then there's an immediate drop off during the handoff to sales or the engagement rates after that. Look for those opportunities and let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye bye.